Hey everybody, AwesomeMattG here, and today we're going to try out the Afterthoughts videos, and we're going to start with The Witcher. So, being that this is the first video that I'm doing of this style, I may not cover exactly everything you guys want me to talk about, or I may talk about some things that you're like, I don't really want to hear about that, but give me some feedback. Let me know if there's things that I am saying or am not mentioning that you would like me to go over. I pretty much got a good starting list of suggestions of things you guys wanted me to talk about, and pretty much everybody was like, you know, don't score the games. That just seems unfair in the grand scheme of things. And I can kind of see where that's coming from. So give me some suggestions and let me know. So let's get started, I guess. I loved the game, to go ahead and start this out. The game was amazing. The graphics were awesome. Music was great. The sound effects were great. All of that stuff was really cool. But for me, the most important thing is the story. And this is the first game I've actually played. I mean, I played through Mass Effect, which had an amazing storyline. And I've played through a bunch of Assassin's Creed games and BioShock that also had a great storyline, but this is the first time that I actually felt like I was playing a book. You know, it sounds kind of boring when it's described like that, but that's the best way I can describe it, you know, because there are long periods where you're not doing a whole lot. You're walking around talking to people, getting information. There's no action really involved other than like fighting a monster here and there, but it's not, you know, it's not heavy into action. And it's not that that's bad. I really enjoyed it. I loved the fact that it played like that. Because it really felt like I was living and playing through a fantasy game. I also loved, and this is something that you know, having never played the series, but having heard lots of people talk about the series, it never really dawned on me what people meant by, you know, gray decisions, the character staying gray, quote unquote, not choosing right or wrong, but choosing to stay neutral as much as possible, or choose the lesser of two evils. And that's something that's quickly demonstrated to you in the game at the end of the I forget the first area, the village section of the game, where you I'm looking this up right now as I'm talking. Anyway, if you've watched the series, you know what I'm talking about. The village portion of the game at the very beginning, right after Kaer Morhen and before you get to Vizima, when you're dealing with that first witch character and the Barghest, I think, if that's the correct term. It's been forever since I've played that part of the game, so it's very vague to me at the moment. But yeah, the whole storyline there really throws it to you right in the beginning that you're not necessarily going to be given, do you want your character to be good or do you want your character to be evil? It's like both of your decisions are bad decisions. it's pretty much like, ugh, God, I wish I could. Is there another decision? Is there a third one that I don't have to worry about? But it went really well. I loved it. Of course, you've got the fact that it's difficult now going back and talking about this. I'll try to be a little more open-minded, but since I've completed The Witcher, I've gone back and read what's the first book? The Last Wish. It's not really part of the Witcher series, quote unquote, but I read The Last Wish, which is like a collection of short stories about Geralt, And then I've read through Blood of Elves, which is the first book in the Witcher saga, I guess. It's like a 4 or 5 book series. I'm not 100% sure, but it's kind of changed my outlook on some of the way to look at the character, and that's kind of how the game starts out, where it drops you into the game, and it's like, all right, you've lost all your memory, you don't know what you're doing, go. It helps put you in the perspective of, you don't know the character's backstory, you don't know what he's done in the past, and it helps you form your own opinions as you go, I guess. It helps you put the character together as you would see fit, and I think I did an actually not too bad job about it. I don't really want to get into the books too much, because they all occur prior to all 3 of the games. So while the games obviously don't affect the books at all, the books don't really affect the games either, because you've lost your memory and you don't know what's really going on. You kind of have to learn it from the ground up, learn who's evil, learn who's good based off of their actions currently speaking. But yeah, it was really well done. Plus, in addition to reading part of the books, reading how the character, just Geralt himself, moves and how he acts and things like that, not necessarily the decisions he makes, but the fighting movement, the way they describe how he waves his sword around like it's not even there, it's just like lightweight, and he dances with his sword and everything like that. I think the combat movement in the game was pretty spot on as far as that was concerned. Having the spells was something that took me a while to get into, because I mean, I think I was playing on the easy difficulty, if I'm not mistaken, and the spells aren't really necessary other than clearing obstacles. You know, the only spells I used basically were Ard and the fire one, Igni. That doesn't sound right. That sounds too obvious. I don't know. Whatever the fire spell was, yeah, Igni. I never really used Axii, Quen, or Earden, just because, I don't know, I never really needed them. But yeah, the grayness of the game behind it, making your own decisions, choosing the outcome of the game, it actually felt like the decisions earlier in the game had an effect on how the story evolved later in the game. Even if you didn't think it did, like these just minor things that you did at the very beginning of the game that you're like, oh, this is the tutorial section of the game. No, man, some of those decisions came up later, and may not have had like a huge effect on the outcome of the story, but it was noticeable. It was there, you know. So that's something that I really like, because that was one of the big downfalls with the Mass Effect series that a lot of people complained about, was some of the decisions earlier in the game that seemed like they would have a much bigger outcome later in the series had absolutely no outcome later in the series. And this makes me feel like, because some of the minor things that you think would be completely insignificant are having noticeable effects, that some of the decisions I made in this game may affect stuff that comes up in The Witcher 2, which I will be playing. So yeah, the leveling system was also something that took me a while to get used to in this game, but it starts off kind of slow. The game doesn't really hold your hand for much of this, or at least it didn't seem like it was. I may have been being my typical self and overlooking a lot of the prompts that it gives you and not fully reading or comprehending what the game's trying to tell me in some of these text boxes. But the leveling system at first is a little complicated to get used to, but once it's one of those things, it's like Final Fantasy games. When you get into the leveling system of them, you start off, and at the beginning you're just like, oh my god, I'm never going to get this, I'm never going to figure it out, and then, you know, by like level 10 or 15, you're just, yeah, no problem. I know exactly what I'm doing in here. And that's kind of how it felt in The Witcher as well. Although I did less future planning than I would normally do in certain games where the leveling system makes a little more intuitive sense. The reason I say that is because, you know, in some other games I'll sit there and I'll go, okay, let me look at the skill tree and figure out what's at the end of all these different skill levels, and then decide based off of this how I'm going to level up to this point, because this is my end goal. This is what I want to end at. And I didn't really do that per se in The Witcher. I kind of based my decisions on what I was having problems with at that time. And if I don't know if this was necessarily intended, but if it was intended, they did an exceptional job in that, because you would find yourself leveling up and getting either silver or gold skill points. Is that what they're called? I think. Let me look. Talent points. You would either get silver or gold talent points that would start unlocking abilities that would reduce your character's susceptibility to certain forms of attack that you're just now being exposed to. So certain, like the stuns, right when the game started introducing stuns, you started giving silver talent points, and you could, if you had built yourself out correctly, you could move yourself towards reducing your chance of being stunned by certain enemies. And of course, by the end, the game's assuming the leveling has worked out pretty well, so that by the end you've got, if not all of the higher end abilities, you've got most of them, a lot of them, more than 50%, I would say. I kind of avoided, like I spent most of my points into combat, so I went into strength and dexterity, and then I went into my steel and silver sword. I didn't go much into the signs. I didn't go much into intelligence past, like, I think I got to level 2 or level 3 in most of them. And then of course when you're getting towards the end of the game and you're getting, you know, you're still getting bronze points even though your goal is silver and gold, you just start dumping them in places that's like, this might be handy. But you're not really building yourself around those skills. The fist fighting seemed a little interesting to me. That's something I never really got into. I mean, I was excited at the time, like, yeah, I'm punching him in the face. But it seemed more ham-fisted, like shoehorned a minigame in there. And then, of course, the dice game, I'm terrible at the minigames for money. You know, you get into games that'll have poker or dice games or other side games like that, games of chance, and I've never been interested in that. I would rather grind, personally. I'd rather go out and grind enemies and sell their drops for money than gamble around. And I guess some people prefer it the other way, where they can gamble and earn money faster, and I'm sure you probably could, but that's just never been for me. The monsters are something I've really been interested in, because it pulls a lot of monsters from obscure, well, at least in the States it would be obscure references to very specific monsters. Like, it'll go into the vampire set of monsters, and in the US, you know, there's vampires. The end. But if you get into the details about it, like, I looked some of these monsters up, I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And then I'll Google the monster name, and they're like, oh yeah, it's in these kinds of stories here, it's a certain subgenre of these kinds of monsters, and you're like, oh, like Bruxa being a subgenre of vampires. I had no idea. But apparently it's not just a Witcher thing. It's other fantasy novels contain that information, and I guess the author just kind of fed off of that and used some of that pre-existing bestiary to flesh out some of the known enemies in this world. You know, the multiple versions of ghouls and things like that felt really, I don't know, real. You know? The one thing that did seem a little, at the time, seemed a little shoehorned in there, or kind of pushed upon. At the time, it felt like it was added in just for the fact. Was the sheer volume of people that you could have sex with in the game. It was just like, wow, man, I didn't. And then as I read through the books, I realized, nope, yep, that's pretty accurate. Geralt does tend to win over most of the ladies. So I guess it fits well with the story. It's just at the time I was all like, man, dude, it's like every chick he runs into, he's all like, yeah, I'm gonna do this mission for you. Yeah, okay, I'm turning in the mission. Okay, that seemed to go over pretty well. So you want to go do it? And it was just like, the hell? But then I'm reading through the books and I'm like, yep, that's pretty accurate. It's not 100%, but it's more than 50%. That's for sure. So, and of course I'm sure some of the other book stuff will come up in future games. But I'm interested. I'm very excited to get to The Witcher 2, although I do want to play some other games before then. But I will definitely be getting to The Witcher 2, because I know The Witcher 2 is substantially longer than The Witcher 1, and then 3 is supposed to be substantially longer than 2. So, the excitement there, I mean, Witcher 1 was much longer than I thought it was going to be. 70-something episodes? And I guess I could have rushed through the storyline missions and kind of ignored all the side missions, but that seems kind of cheap to me personally. I don't like rushing through games. I prefer getting most of the side missions. I'm not 100% completionist with games, and I'm sure most of you are aware of this by now. But you know, if a side quest is available and I can do it and it's not too difficult, yeah, sure, why not? Let's do it. It's only when you get into side quests that are like, okay, you've got this thing over here that's really obscure and has no impact on the game whatsoever, but we want you to go collect this flower over here because this little girl wants this flower, but it's going to lead to like 40 other quests that you have to do prior to that again, none of them have any foreseeable outcome on the game, and it's just like, ugh, this is just to take up space. But all the side quests in this game seemed to be meaningful. They had purpose. They had an effect on the outcome of what I was doing. And that's important to me. There were a couple of decisions throughout the game that I wish I could go back and change. I'm glad I made them at the time, but I didn't foresee the outcome of what I had decided. So I'm trying to think of some right off the top. Like for example, the one near the end where I could either back the... Gosh, I forget the term that was used at the time. I could either oppose the Scoia'tael and help the soldiers, whoever they were, or I could just walk away and not do anything. And I thought to myself, walking away and not doing anything, that seems like a really cheap way to do it. But after I saw the outcome, I was like, maybe I should have chose that one instead. That seems like a more gray decision. It seems like I was pushing... But I mean, at the time, it felt like the right decision. So, you know, do I want to go back and try the game again with different decisions? Sure. Would I have changed my decision then? Probably not. I don't really see myself doing that. I'm also not one of those guys that'll go back and do multiple saves, and then if I choose a decision and I'm like, well, that wasn't the outcome I wanted, I'm not going to go back and reload my save and play through that again. I'm just going to accept that the decision was bad and hope that I can make up for it later. Because, I mean, if a decision's not going to end the game, it's... screw it. Let's see what happens, right? So, there's that. I also never felt like... I'm trying to think about all the zones in the game, and there's not that many. There's the village at the beginning, which, once you're past there, there's not really any reason to go back once you get inside Vizima through the sewers. There's the sewers themselves, 3 different sections of Vizima, and the swamps, 2 sections of swamps. I'm missing something. Oh, there was a section across the lake. I forgot about that. Which is weird because none of them are all that big, but they don't seem... It doesn't seem like you're crammed into a very small area. But, I mean, in reality, you are. You never really leave this very small section of the world right around this lake. But it doesn't feel like you're kind of limited. The game is sending you back and forth all over the place, and it flowed really well. So I very much appreciate all of that, and it works great. I'm trying to think some other things I can go over. The combat system was really good. I thought the fighting was understandable after I got used to the first few attempts to figure out how exactly to do it, and then figuring out when to use quick, strong, and group attacks. They seemed pretty self-explanatory. None of the enemies were extremely difficult. The one thing I did realize with the Witcher series partway through playing, and especially after near the end, with I forgot her name. The chick that turns into the monster that is in the cutscene at the very beginning, and I forget what the character's name was that turns into the monster. I forget. Scoia'tael, Princess Ada. There you go. The section with Ada near the end, when she's the Striga and I kill her, and then I realize, oh, there was an option to save her. That's interesting. I had no idea how to do it. And then somebody mentioned in the comments, hey, you know, if you'd read through the books, or if you had actually read the real books, you would have known how to do it. And of course, since then, I've read the books and I've learned how to do it. But at the time, it didn't even dawn on me that there was another option. I was just like, I gotta kill her. But, yeah, I really liked the game. I really, really enjoyed it. I can't really think of anything about it that was bad other than the beginning was a little slow. But that might have been part because I wasn't reading enough of the prompts, and part because I didn't know anything about the Witcher series getting into it. So there's those two things. But if you can get past, if you haven't played the game and you're thinking about doing it, if you can get your character through the section in the village, it really hits its stride and starts running real quick once you're in Vizima itself. And of course, the village is only chapter 1, really, out of 5 main chapters. So it's, even though that makes it sound like it's 20% of the game, it's really probably only like 5 or 10% of the game at that point. So yeah, I thought the game was amazing. So let me know what you guys think about this first video. I'm not going to record any more quite yet because I want to get some feedback about how y'all felt I covered certain topics, what I didn't cover, what I did cover but you'd prefer I not, things like that. Give me some additional suggestions and we'll go from there. So thank you guys for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.